He just does things from my time. No, I'm not in that world. I've never been in that.
Hello. Hi, everybody. How's it going? So, just some reminders, just so you're aware. I know I keep repeating these at the beginning of every class, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on. We're almost at the end of Unit 2, so next week is the last week of class for Unit 2, and then we'll have a week off of class in between Unit 2 and Unit 3, and then Unit 3 will start after that. As of right now, we're scheduled to do Java. I think actually Ryan's going to come up here and talk to you a little bit about Unit 3 stuff once I'm finished. So if you have questions about what's going to happen in Unit 3, he'll be talking to you about that in just a little bit. As far as Unit 2 goes, we do have some deadlines coming up. The official due date for blogs is next Thursday, I want to say, but the official deadline to get everything submitted to us by the end of Unit 2 is on Sunday, May the 2nd. Is that right? May the 4th? I don't remember. May the something. It's a Sunday and it's in May. That's what I remember right now. It's on Canvas. May the 6th. Thank you. I was not even close. It's coming up, and we are going to have a study session, I believe, scheduled. Was it Tuesday? Monday. Okay. I don't know why I thought Tuesday. Study session scheduled for Monday during the break week. So if you need help getting caught up on stuff, please come in. I'm sure your TAs might also be scheduling stuff as well. And of course, we're always available via Slack and other channels. Are there any questions about end of Unit 2 stuff? What's going to happen? What deadlines, deadline things of that nature? Getting pretty close. We'll talk about today's material in just a little bit. Next week, we're going to just kind of tie up some loose ends. We're going to talk about some more security-related stuff for Monday, I believe. And then on Thursday, we're going to spend some time talking about more CSS-oriented things, if I'm remembering correctly, to kind of tie up loose ends. Today's another, not as heavy day. This whole week, I think, was sort of planned as a chance for you guys to kind of catch your breath a little bit and catch up on past assignments, because we really do want you to complete these things and move on to the next unit. So I do want to talk to you about a very important concept today, and there is a studio today, actually, but there is no walkthrough, so you'll still have a lot of time to work on assignments, catch up on assignments, and still hopefully complete that studio this evening. So let's talk about today's prep work. It's all based around MVC, which model view controller, very, 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 very common, very popular programming paradigm. What role does the model part of the MVC play? What is it doing for us? What's the model do?
It stores the data, right?
Stores the data. Model stores the data. And then what's the view do for us?
Makes it pretty.
Displays it, right? Displays the data. And then the controller is the man behind the curtain, pulling the levers, right? Making sure that everything gets to where it needs to go, making sure that the user sees the appropriate information that they're supposed to be able to see. And so you see it's called a paradigm, and actually the prep work today I feel like made a pretty strong emphasis on this, both the video and the article. What's a paradigm? Anybody have an idea of what I mean when I say it's a paradigm? Yeah. It's a way of thinking. They contrasted that with like a framework. They actually spouted out, the video spouted off lots and lots and lots of frameworks that use MVC. So Ruby is one example. Apple's got their own version, of course, because that's what Apple does. We're going to Flask, right? We're going to talk about Flask in just a second. Allows you to do MVC stuff. And actually Unit 3 as well, regardless of where you end up, either in this track or the other track, we'll be doing MVC there as well. So when we talk about paradigms, the suggestion that it's a way of thinking, a way of approaching a problem, versus a framework, which is a much more concrete, much more, here are the actual tools, here's a hammer that you can use to build the thing, right? whereas a paradigm is more like a blueprint, more like a structural design element. So we'll see this paradigm, this model view controller paradigm, appear in many different places, including Flask. We've been using it this unit to put together flick list. We didn't tell you that's what we were doing, but that's what we were doing. So in our flick list application, I should have actually loaded it up. I guess I could still do that. But which piece or pieces comprise the model of our flick list application? The database. Anything else? I'm sorry? The classes? Yeah, the classes. So the classes communicate with the database via the ORM, and I would actually put those sort of in the model category as well. They contain our data on the application side. Then the view. Which part of our program represents the view? Templates, right? The example of a view given in the prep work, given in the video and the article was HTML, CSS kind of stuff, and that's what we use in our templates. And then finally the controller, the Python code or the handlers. And there was a very important point in the video that they kind of went through rather quickly, but I thought was important to kind of mention. You know, I'm not limited to one controller. I can have many different controllers, and I can actually choose what controller I want to use based on certain contexts. We have handlers, so handlers are really part of the controllers. They decide how we handle each and every route. As we start to build more and more complex programs, we'll start to see our applications are segmented even more, and instead of jamming all of our Python code into one file, we'll try and break it down and organize it into different controller files a bit more cleanly. So yeah, we've been using the MVC paradigm. It's hard to get away from, honestly. It's such a ubiquitous design, such a ubiquitous way of thinking about a program, thinking about a problem. But very useful. Why? Why do we bother? Why does everybody do things this way? Or what's the alternative, I guess? If we didn't want to do things using MVC, what would we do instead? Yeah, lots of code. Lots of code. I don't know how many of you did this, but you know, back in the internet, early internet days, when I was in you know, high school in the late 90s, early 2000s, I tinkered around with websites, and I would just hard code everything, right? Just write out every single little detail. It didn't matter to me how long it took. I was a high school student. I hadn't had anything better to do. So I would just code out huge sections in HTML, CSS. It was awful. Like, look, in hindsight, not only was my website awful, but sitting down and writing all that code was awful. 33-year-old me looks back at those days and is like, what was I doing? And so I didn't know about this. I didn't know about model view controller. That wasn't really a thing I was aware of at the time. It's really revolutionized the way that we approach websites. Reduces the amount of code by increasing the reusability of our code. Increasing how much code we can reuse. And we see that, where do we see code being reused in our flick list application? What's an example of code reuse that we've been leaning on a lot? I'm sorry, the HTML, the templates, right? We write one chunk of HTML, and then we use it over and over and over and over again. And we just change the pieces that need to be changed by passing in the variables that we want into those particular templates. So that's another actually good point. Well, when I do that, when I pass in variables and I render a template, and that's actually two parts of the paradigm communicating with each other. Which parts of the paradigm are talking to each other when that happens? The view and the controller. The controller is telling the view, here's the stuff that you need, here's what I want you to display. Here's the information that you need to do your job. What other communication do we expect to take place in this paradigm? Between which two components? The controller and the model. So the controller really is sort of the central point, sort of the, I mean, it's called a controller for a reason because it's sort of overseeing the whole operation. If we ever need to do any data access, the controller does that too, and we've seen that in our code. That's what happens. We access our persistence classes That's what does the direct communication to the database via the ORM, and then we take that data and we pass it to the view as appropriate. What other questions did you have about stuff that was in the video or the article today? Does this seem like a pretty straightforward concept, I hope? I hope. We're going to be using this a lot. We're introducing it now. Actually, Unit 3 is built very much around this model, so I don't want to spoil too much because I feel like Ryan's going to talk to us here in a moment. But for the Java track, which I expect to be teaching here on Mondays and Thursdays, we're going to be using a framework called Spring, which does model view controller in a very similar way that Flask does. The language is different. Java is a very different language from Python, which is a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But it's still model view controller. I can still point at all three different components. And that's a nice thing about programming is even if the language is unfamiliar, there are still familiar pieces, and you can use that knowledge to help you understand what's going on, hopefully. Any questions? It's kind of a quick one. There was not a lot of prep work today. It was like a 20-minute video and a very short article to read, so I'm not sure that I have a ton to talk to you about. I know Ryan wanted to talk to you, so Ryan, if you can hear me, or do I need to turn my volume up? Hey, Ryan. Ryan, are you in the office? Hey, buddy. I'm surprised that works. Told you it was going to be short.
Yeah, you weren't kidding.
Nope.
Hey, if you didn't see on Canvas and on Slack, I don't know how you would have missed it, but please go on to Canvas, find the survey where you indicate whether or not you want to stay in this section where we'll be teaching Java, or whether you want to go to the other section where we'll be teaching C#.NET. Please go fill out that survey if you haven't yet. I had some people ask me already, so let me just clarify that if you're in this class and you indicate that you want to stay in this class, I'm not going to move you to the other class. I thought that was obvious, but I did a really bad job of messaging that in Unit 2, so let me be clear about that now. But if you're here and you want to stay here and learn Java, you don't want to go learn C#, that's fine. That's a lifestyle choice that I personally, as someone who learns C#, can't respect, but that we won't forcibly take your spot from you. You're already here. That wouldn't make any sense. Yeah, what's up? Sure. My answer almost universally is going to be it doesn't really matter. They're largely the same thing. C# is really and truly Microsoft didn't feel like paying Oracle to use Java, and so they created their own version of Java, is how it works out. They both have uses in both software development and web development. Web development's the main spot where they compete directly with each other in terms of that. In St. Louis, largely the market share is about 50-50 for back-end web development. Not exactly, slight preference for Java in St. Louis, but it's about equal. Does anybody have any specific questions they want me to address about, like, if you're thinking about C#, how I can sell it to you? Anybody? No? How about optional arguments for methods? Anybody? No? Okay. Whatever. If you're interested in video game development, you can use C# and Unity. It's the most kind of like popular indie game development tool right now. So that's something to think about. A lot of people use C# for VR stuff. So if that's something that you're theoretically interested in down the line, you could do that. In terms of most use cases, though, roughly equivalent.
The only question I really have is with the schedule.
No, I mean, so I mean, obviously, the Tuesday Saturday class still going to be Tuesday Saturday. So if you're considering doing C#, take that into account. It's no longer going to be downtown. However, it's going to be here at the Mentor Center. So if that was something you worried about before, that's no longer the case. So Tuesday and Saturday for the C# class. Saturday from 1 to 4 here at the Mentor Center. Anybody else? Anything? Going once, going twice. All right, please make sure you get the survey filled out. Otherwise, get your homework done, guys. We're heading towards the deadline, May 6th. So get it done early because you do have to have it demoed to a TA or to an instructor or launch code staff. That's going to be on you guys figuring out if you don't get it turned in by the last day of class, it's going to be up to you to figure out how to get that demoed. So don't delay it. Get it done early if you can. All right? All right.
Okay, I was not planning to hop into the Java versus C# debate. I actually like C#, but since Ryan started it, one of the good reasons to take Java is because you'll be here with me. So come hang out with me. I actually like C# as well, so if you're interested in C#, I'd be happy to talk to you about that sometime, even though we are planning to do Java here. I know them both. So I like them both. And Ryan is correct that they're very similar. Do a lot of the same kinds of things. So don't let this decision be one that keeps you up at night. If you're really having that hard of a time deciding which one you want to do, honestly, I would look at personal things. Check your schedule. Do the one that's easiest for your schedule. Pick that one, because in the long run, Java versus C# isn't going to be a huge influencing factor in where you end up. Any other questions for me about prep work or other stuff before I get out of your way? Any other questions? I know it was a short lecture today. That's a good thing because we want you to get caught up on the assignments. There is a studio today. Actually, there's no walkthrough, so I did not do a walkthrough, obviously. But there is, in fact, a studio today. I don't have it pulled up, unfortunately. But if you are caught up on the assignments. Oh, yeah, of course. If you're caught up on the assignments, then please take a look at the studio. It has you connecting up, making the relationships between users and movies in the flick list application. So not directly related to Model View Controller, but still good review of relationships in our database. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let us know if you need anything. Thanks.